That's right. Just keep dancing. Let's just run this song for the first 20 minutes of this segment. Welcome, welcome, welcome. The Phillies win. The Fightins win, baby. I'm your host, Ryan Rothstein. Ty Hood is hanging with me here, producing the show. Let's do it. 215-592-9494. All right, hit us up. We already have a few of you on hold. We'll get right to you as soon as we can. Ty, by the way, we do have Marcus Hayes joining us. I nail it with my communication skills to the producer. I mean, we are just on. I'm just so fired up about this Phillies team. Obviously the win, and we're going to get into the entire game. We're going to get into the team as a whole. We're going to get into the playoff run. There's so much for us to discuss, and hopefully we'll do it with you out there throughout the entirety of the overnight show weekend edition. 215-592-9494. I'm your host, Ryan Rothstein, at WiseRye on Twitter, WiseRye. Hoskins is the hero. All right, he's the one that stepped up, at least for this game. Right, so we're going to be asking you throughout the show, what is the story surrounding this Phillies team right now? What/who? Because there's so many good answers, right? You can name a player. Who have you enjoyed? Who has surprised you? Who has really stepped up and been the difference maker? Or what? Doesn't have to be a player or a person. Because that's the first thing I jotted down in my notes when prepping for this show earlier. I wrote at the top of my page, I have it right here with a star, what's the story right now? That's how I was going to build the show. And I said, you know what? That's what I'm asking everyone over the air, because I have a ton of good answers. I'm sure Ty does too. Ty Hood producing, taking your calls. He'll be joining the convo with me throughout the night into the morning. 215-592-9494. I'm going to get to Marcus in just a couple of minutes. I didn't think Marcus was tired enough, right? So I hit him up and said, hey, man, you know what? Let's keep this party going.
Of course, keep him up.
Yeah, keep him up. So I'm sure he's really happy I hit him up. No, he's the man. He's always willing to jump on board and have some fun and speak truth, drop knowledge. So we'll get the Marcus Hayes of the Philadelphia Inquirer and right here, 94 WIP, in just a couple minutes. What's the story right now surrounding this Phillies team? And should I give my answer right now, or should I keep everyone on the hook? Now I'll give you my answer. It's Topper. Is that an easy answer, Ty? Is that a bad answer? There's no right or wrong answer. Ty's busy taking calls. We'll get to Ty in a few minutes. But I asked myself that question, is Topper too easy of an answer? And I say absolutely not, right? Because what did I say to start this thing off here a minute or two ago? Hoskins was the hero for Game 4. And it the reality of it has been there's been a different hero for every game. I mean, whether it was Wheeler and Nola against the St. Louis Cardinals, whether it's been JT, Harper, Casty, Brandon Marsh. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's like everyone has stepped up at some point. The bullpen. I mean, my goodness, there's 15 different names that we could probably throw out there that has played, air quote, the hero at some point throughout this playoff run. So we want to get your answers out there. We want to get your thoughts and feels around this Phillies team, because it's just ridiculous right now in the best way. It's unbelievable. All right, we'll get Ty's thoughts a little bit later in this segment. But Ty said to me before we jumped on, he's like, I'm calling you out here, Ty. But not really, because I felt the same way. Ty was like, man, I feel dumb. Last time you and I talked, I was bashing this team. I didn't think they were going to do this. And I was like, Ty, find me the person that predicted this, okay? Right? Like, no one expected this. No one. None of you out there did. I didn't. Ty didn't.
I know a couple of people that predicted this, though.
No, those people were just the definition of optimist, fan, diehard to the fullest. Not that we're not, but you get what I'm saying.
Here's one here.
Jack Fritz is a dope.
Jack Fritz does not count in that answer. At 215-592-9494. I'm your host, Ryan Rothstein. Connor, the Weave, Gary, Harold, all of you on hold. We're going to get right to you. I have Marcus Hayes on hold, so I don't want to keep him on any longer, right? This guy needs to get some damn rest, right? Marcus Hayes of the Philadelphia Inquirer doesn't really need an introduction. You can give him a follow on Twitter, of course, at InkStainedWretch. An article already dropped following the Phillies' Game 4 win, talking about Hoskins from booze to cheers. And you can catch that article on the Philadelphia Inquirer website or, of course, in the papers. Let's go to Marcus right now to get his thoughts and feels and everything in between surrounding this Philadelphia Phillies team. Mr. Marcus Hayes, thank you so much for staying up a few more minutes with us here on the Overnight Show. Marcus, you with me, my friend? Marcus.
Sorry about that. I just got home, so yeah, it was. I'm wired. I'm ready for you.
All right, good to hear, man. Good to hear, because I am as well. Man, I have all these thoughts and questions I wanted to ask you, but let's just get your thoughts. Like, Marcus Hayes, take the wheel here for as long as you want. Just recap Game 4, the biggest story for you. I think I know your answer, but take us away here.
Well, I mean, I guess last night the big story was Gene Segura redeems himself with a big hit and a couple of big defensive plays after he drops a relay and, he hasn't been playing great. Gets picked off first base. That's who Gene Segura is, right? Rhys Hoskins is a little bit steadier. He's had a really bad postseason. He had one big hit and a bat slam. But he was getting booed in introductions today. He got booed when he stepped in the batter's box. And it's funny, I'm getting heat on Twitter. Like, why'd you ask a question about Rhys Hoskins? Well, you guys were booing him, You don't want me to ask a question about him getting booed. Don't boo him. But then he drops two bombs, And he now leads. He shares the lead in RBI for the postseason with Bryce Harper. And he shares the lead in home runs. I mean, you just don't see a guy go from – negative to positive that quickly. And that, to me, was clearly the story tonight because, as you know, Ryan, if you're starting Bailey Falter, you're going to have to score some runs. And it was worse than you could imagine. Yeah,
it certainly was. I was just the definition of a fan to start that game. I was just screaming and yelling at my dad. What did we expect here to throw out Bailey Falter? I mean, but that makes this run, it sort of encapsulates all of it, doesn't it? Because that's who they had to go to. That's the reality of their situation right now. And it didn't even matter, Marcus.
Well, I mean, it's not who they had to go to. It's who they chose to go to. I mean,
well, their options are limited, right?
Well, it was a horrible choice. It's the biggest mistake Rob Thompson has made all year.
Yeah.
You put a guy out there who doesn't necessarily match up with that lineup that well. He hasn't seen hardly any of them. And the two guys he's seen a lot have crushed him. Number one. Number two, for what it's worth, Noah Syndergaard's done it, and he's done it this postseason. This was Bailey Falter's, first start.
Very true.
So, it was a horrible idea. I didn't get it whatsoever. And it didn't work out. It was a massive failure. It is by far the worst thing Rob Thompson's done this postseason. The guy that he put out there didn't get out of the inning and gave up 4 runs. Fortunately, Rhys Hoskins exists and Bryce Harper exists. I mean, if you want me to address the best Philly or the reason they're there, my candidate not really hard to figure out.
Hey, it's Mr. Harper, right? I mean, what he's doing is quite literally historic.
Well, Rob Thompson, I mean, Rob Lowe could manage this team with Bryce Harper hitting the way he's hitting. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
He's having as good a postseason as David Ortiz did in 2004. And he's doing it without Manny Ramirez. It's just he's got JT Realmuto and Rhys Hoskins hitting in front of him. And he's having a spectacular one-man show postseason. I mean, Rhys Hoskins and Kyle Schwarber before tonight were batting under 200 in the postseason, the entire postseason. And Bryce Harper was leading the entire postseason among players with more than 3 or 4 games with a 4.10 average. No protection, no help. With Castellanos behind him batting 200.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been more of one. I mean, it's just spectacular what we're witnessing. And unfortunately for Bryce Harper, who does it every single night, when the Phillies win, when they do produce, somebody else is producing as well. You know, it took 2 home runs by Rhys Hoskins to overshadow 2 doubles, 2 RBI doubles by Bryce Harper.
Amazing.
To push his OPS to 1.311, which is like 400 points better than the next guy in the postseason, you know, who qualifies. So what we're witnessing now is historic and incredibly overshadowed and incredibly anonymous. It's really I've never seen anything like it in my 32 years of covering sports, where a guy is clearly the best player. He's having one of the best postseasons ever, and clearly the best player in the moment with so little attention because there are so many other good storylines.
94 WIP Overnight Show Weekend Edition. Marcus Hayes is our guest here, columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer, as well as one of our own right here on Sports Radio WIP. Give him a follow on Twitter at InkStainedReg. Just a couple of quick questions for you before I let you go get some sleep, Marcus. You make a joke or an analogy, or maybe it wasn't a joke, that Rob Lowe could manage this team the way Bryce Harper has been just absolutely raking right now, and that's just a fact. But how much credit do you give Topper? Because I look at this team right now and just the situation that they're in and how they got here, and the way that he's managed them and the confidence that he exudes and the relaxed, laid-back nature of Rob Thompson and how it impacts this clubhouse has just been such a huge factor, in my opinion, of why this team is where they are. Just I want your thoughts on his impact that he's had on this team.
Well, you know, I was listening to this station earlier, and people were trying to put into words why Rob Thompson has been successful. And first, he knows baseball. Okay, he's a really, really good baseball man. He's prepared, and he has the respect of his players. But you know, a lot of guys can be that way. They can show up early with all the information. Number one, he's authentic. You know, he is invested in you. He's not going to lie to you, and he doesn't really care what you think about him. That's rare in managers today. You don't have that up in New York. You don't have that with Joe Madden anymore. You didn't have that with Joe Girardi. These guys are brands and stars, and they want endorsements and whatnot. Rob Thompson doesn't care, so he's authentic, humble. But more than anything else, he trusts the players to play. He understands that nothing matters if they don't produce. So he gives them the opportunity to fail. Several times this postseason, we have asked, and this station has posited, well, you know, it's crazy that you've got a guy, you know, like Kyle Schwarber hitting under 200 and Rhys Hoskins hitting under 200 in the 1-2 slots. Well, they wouldn't be hitting in the 1-2 slots if the Phillies had people in their organization that could hit in the typically hit in the 1 and 2 spots. They don't. So they're making do with what they have. And again, he's letting them play. If they win, they win. If they lose, they lose. And when you let players play, that's what Doug Peterson did in 2017 and Charlie Manuel did from 2007 to 2011. Looked around, said, this is going to be your job, go do it, and got out of the way. You're not managing college kids. You're not coaching college kids. You're coaching grown men. They don't need to be micromanaged. A lot of managers don't understand that. Rob Thompson understands that.
Marcus, the environment at Citizens Bank Park over the past 2 games, really throughout the postseason thus far, just your opinion, where does it rank? Where does it stack up in some of the other memorable postseason Philly playoff atmospheres?
I wasn't a Philadelphian in '83 when the Sixers won. I've been here since '95. This is by far a more invested, more intense crowd then the Eagles in 2017, the Phillies in 2007, 8, 9. This is a crowd that is it's fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
Because I do a lot of crowd watching. I have binoculars and stuff. And you don't see people goofing around. You know, you don't see people really drinking that much. These people are there to watch every pitch, to watch every out, to appreciate every moment. And not just because it's been 11 years, but these are real baseball fans. There are more real baseball fans in Citizens Bank Park right now than there have ever been real football fans at the Vet or the Link since I've been here. I mean, I've been here for the entire Link, and has ever been there for Citizens Bank Park when, during the glory days, because, even in the playoffs, you could go to the bars, and the bars in the Citizens Bank Park would be full. The bars aren't full now. It's a different vibe. Everybody's very invested, and they're interested in the game, which makes it fun for me.
Yep.
Because when there's a buzz, when there's a crowd like that, when the crowd is like the crowd is at Fenway, or really for every game, that makes it more fun for the people who have to work there, like myself.
All right, Marcus, we'll get you out on this. Just your prediction: Wheeler getting the ball at 2:37 later today. At this point, Darvish getting the ball for the Padres. Do the Phils close things out?
They really should. I mean, they were on him in San Diego in Game 1, and honestly, when Bryce hit his second double and the Phillies took the lead, I could see the wind go out of the sails of the Padres. They were done. They you know what? It's been a good run. We had a good time. We'll be back here next year. We're stacked. We know it. But you can see when a team is ready to lie down, and I think they're ready to lie down.
I love it. Marcus Hayes, Philadelphia Inquirer, as well as right here, Sports Radio 94 WIP. Ink Stained Wretch is where you can give him the follow on Twitter. Kind enough to give us a few minutes of his time after a very long day and evening. Marcus, thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
All right.